it's a bummer that this is how we start off the week. And bummer's putting it gently. And by the way, the same thing happened last week. There has been yet another police shooting, this time in Wisconsin. Last week, we started off the week. There was one right in my neighborhood in Pasadena, California. There was a police shooting right in my neighborhood. And they're both similar here in the sense that the person's back was turned pretty much. Let's go right to it. This is Jacob Blake in Wisconsin, which, by the way, as of the recording of this, Jacob Blake is still alive. So we'll see. He's in critical condition. But as of right now, as of the recording of this, he is still alive. But here's what's going on so far. So let's watch this video. So there he is. That's the guy they shoot. So they have their gun pointed at him. He's just walking to his car. They shoot him 7 times.
Oh, my God.
They pull him out of his car, shoot him 7 times. All right, so here's the best part. Here's what he did. He broke what we know so far. This guy broke up a fight. He broke up a fight between 2 people.
Yeah.
And then for whatever reason, police were confronting him. I don't know. I mean, the guy broke up a fight. I don't know why they were antagonizing him. Wouldn't they? I mean, why wouldn't they just say, hey, thanks for breaking up that fight. Have a nice day. I don't know the answer to that. As of right now, I have no idea why they were antagonizing a guy who broke up a fight. You see him walk over to his car. By the way, his kids were in the car. 3 kids. I think 3, 5, and 8 were their ages, but they were young kids. And they shoot him 7 times.
Where was this?
This was in Wisconsin.
Okay.
Yeah. So this happened in Wisconsin. It happened just now. And I know, like, I mentioned this briefly to you guys off mic, and I know you hadn't seen this yet in the news this morning. So, surprise, you get to find out and respond to it live in real time on Get Your News On with Ron. It's just, well, let's talk like bigger picture, because I mean, right now, and I know some people are saying, they're just like, well, he was going into his car and they didn't know what was in his car. Like maybe he had a gun or something like that. And it's like, okay, so if you had to restrain the guy from going into his car because you think that he's going to reach for a gun and start shooting at officers with his kids in the car, you think that that's what this guy's going to do, which, you know, a bit of a stretch, but let's just entertain the idea that, okay, you think that's what that guy's going to do. You couldn't, multiple officers on the scene couldn't restrain a guy from going into his car without shooting him 7 times.
Crazy.
They had to shoot him 7 times
to
restrain a guy from going into his car when you have him outnumbered. And so far,
7 times. Like not
7 times.
And why not just like, you know, I don't want to repeat what didn't Joe Biden say? Why don't you just shoot him in the leg or something?
Yeah, that was Joe Biden's.
That makes sense a little bit. You know, I have to agree. Like, why don't you just, if you're going to shoot him, which is wrong, why do you have to shoot him 7 times in the back like that? Like, if you shoot someone in the calf, that's going to paralyze them, most likely, you would think.
Or at least stop them from getting in their car.
Stop them, yeah.
Yeah, but if
it's going to stop them. Yeah,
the fact that they're shooting them 7 times in the back just shows you how excessive they are, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, this is one of those things where it's like we can't. I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? My take on the whole thing is we can't reform the police. It's too late. That ship has sailed. This is a systemic disease that's been going on for so long now. And it's been going on, by the way, when you really want to trace it back. I mean, this has basically been going on for centuries.
Well, have they tried really doing police reform rather than, this is the one thing we agree on basically everything. I have one thing I kind of wanted to ask you about.
Yeah, go ahead. Ask away.
This is kind of the whole idea of defunding the police.
Mm-hmm.
A little just to most, I would think to regulars, people who are just come from outside the box. It sounds kind of like
who live in the city.
It doesn't sound like, it sounds like defunding the fire department or something like that. It doesn't. What exactly is it?
Well,
and that's
when we call the police, they don't answer, and we've
right.
show up at our door that looked like they were going to murder us, like looking in our window.
Yeah, when you live in the city.
You know, when you live in the city, it's crazy. And I called the police, no answer. It's busy. Got in a car accident. There was like 10 of us. And
someone rear-ended us.
Someone rear-ended. Yes, it wasn't our fault. We're smart drivers. We called everyone called the police. 30 minutes. We actually there was a police that passed us, and he looked at us, and he was just like, "Sorry, don't have time for you." And I'm like, "Oh my freaking! Like, we need to put more money into that aspect of where they could save us." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
they seem underfunded, actually.
For us, they seem underfunded.
For practical things, yeah.
Well, I mean, they're definitely not. And I think this goes into the misconception that people have. It's just that all that money that they're given goes towards militarization. It goes towards rubber bullets. It goes towards tear gas that they use on citizens. Yeah. It doesn't go towards helping people that got in a car accident. That's not a concern of law enforcement. So, you know, this addresses a couple things. I mean, I think that you're right. The average person, when they hear defund the police, they don't really know what that means. And yeah, it does sound scary. What it actually means is like, and that's why I think as soon as someone says defund the police, the best thing to do is show a graph. And people started doing that, especially here in LA, that really explains what that actually means. Here in Los Angeles, the area that both of us call home, that all of us call home, the police get about, I believe it's 54% of our entire budget. And again, what is that? I mean, that's a lot. That's a freaking lot. What is all of it going towards? Well, it's going towards the rubber bullets that they used on peaceful protesters. It's going towards the tear gas that they used on peaceful protesters. It's going towards...
Demilitarize the police might be a better term.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel you. Like I understand, like the messaging does need to be like addressed and tweaked, but I mean, you can't. The other side of that is, I think the time to tiptoe around the fact that we need true systemic change is over, and you know, the time to recognize that we need, you know, very, very significant systemic change to this. You got to address that now. And that does involve, and so when people say defund the police, explaining what they mean, like, no, we don't mean that the police has no budget. We mean that this huge percentage that's getting allocated just to them, we need to rethink that. And we need to rethink how that's being spent, what it's being spent on, and it needs to go into social programs. And second of all, the other thing that I would go a step further with, we need to reimagine the way police interact in our lives. I mean, we can go back to the example you guys gave. Why isn't there just like a traffic enforcement specialist who would address you guys? And why do those people need guns? And
mental illness specialists and
yeah. Like why? I mean, I wrote a thing. I took the time, like I wrote this like policy idea. Because like whenever you say we need to reimagine law enforcement in our lives, people will say, well, what do you mean by that? How would you imagine it? So I said, fair enough. I'm going to write out how I would do it. If I was like, you know, mayor of Townsville, this is what I would do. And I would have like different specialized divisions where you have people like the person who responds to a noise complaint at a kegger. That person doesn't need a gun. The person who, you know, responds to a traffic related incident. Why does that person doesn't need a gun either? They should have body cams. They should have, you know, some self-defense weapon should they ever need it.
Yeah.
But why do they need a firearm when someone just got rear-ended?
Yeah.
You know, so I think we need to just completely re-examine that job. You know, when there are cases where force is absolutely necessary, i.e. a live shooter who is a threat to other people, as well as, you know, the police officers or whoever else is on the scene because they are a live shooter. Why are we having these grossly undertrained cops who don't know how to handle that situation? Why are they on that scene? How is anyone safer from that? Well, why don't we have... Go ahead.
The key word, I think, is undertrained.
Sure.
More than anything. Because you need to have I mean, what good is a law if there isn't law enforcement? Like, I think when you were talking about a different issue, net neutrality, and you gave an example of like, oh, well, no one's going to murder anyone. So does that mean that we don't need a law against murder?
Oh, right. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think the same thing pertains to, okay, no, there isn't going to be a live shooter. But what if there is one? Do you want the police not to be there with a firearm?
No, I do. I mean, what I think is that we should have, I mean, the way I broke it down in like the piece that I wrote was we should have different divisions, and the division that would respond to something like a live shooter, those are combat officers. That's like kind of like the name I gave them. And they should only respond to situations like that. They should only respond to situations where force may be absolutely, completely, 100% unavoidable. A violent domestic dispute, an armed robbery, a live shooter. And what do they do for the rest of their time? They spend their time training for said situation. Who would you want? I mean, would you rather have the guy who just, shot an unarmed person at a traffic stop for no reason? Do you want that person responding to a live shooter? What do you think they're going to do?
Yeah, it's like a surgeon. There's brain surgeons, heart surgeons,
right?
For different
specialists.
Yeah, like a pediatrician has a different job than a heart surgeon.
Yeah,
or a foot doctor or whatever else. And they all have their role. Like, after my car accident, I should have gone to a chiropractor and I didn't. Because health insurance is great in the United States. That's why I didn't go. I don't even know if that part went on the stream or not. But yeah, I think until we see true systemic change, and that's why I say defund the police. And I think we need to go a step further and just reinvent what it means to have police in our lives. And that can be done. That's an attainable thing.
I love how the UK police work. I always see great scenarios where someone's coming at them with a knife and they just take them down. They're so well trained. I don't know why we can't be like that.
I think it's because it's not of interest. I mean, we have the resources to do this. There's no reason why we can't have people that just specialize in traffic, and then people that specialize into like just common disputes where you need an intermediary third party. And then you can't have people that respond to, violent situations that are well trained to handle that and only that.
Yeah.
Is that David Geffen? Tell him I'm busy. Is that the president of show business? Tell him we're doing a show here.
He keeps wanting us. We have to say no.
Is that Rolling Stone? Just tell them you're doing this, and then you'll get to them.
I don't like yeah.
Do they want to review the album?
They do.
And this keeps happening. I mean, it seems like this is a weekend activity almost. Like last weekend, they shot someone in Pasadena. This past weekend, Wisconsin.
It's every day, but we only hear about certain cases, I guess. But
sure.
Yeah, and all the time, just like our album, all the time.
It's nuts. And I appreciate you guys being willing to respond in real time to something like this, because I know it's hard, but it's very discouraging how many times on this show, because of the nature of this show, it's Get Your News On with Ron, where it's like, we just kind of see what's going on and we just like get our news on together. Because of the nature and premise of this show, we have discovered live shootings together, be it me and the audience or me and the guest or me and whoever else. I don't know how many times. I've lost count.
Yeah.
And that's a testament to what's going on with law enforcement in the United States. And when you see something like this, how can you not say we need radical systemic change?
I believe in change. I believe we can change. Education is very important, and we can re-educate anybody. I think there is hope.
I hope so.
I mean, Medicare for all is so important for mental health as well.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Like, better social services prevents crime in the first place.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Right.
So it's like we never, and I think the interesting parallel to healthcare is whether it comes to healthcare or crime, the United States doesn't give a hoot about preventative measures.
Yeah.
They don't care because there's not as much profit in that for the powerful.
True.
Like there's no profit in, investing in people's health and well-being early and telling them to eat right and telling them to, like exercise or telling them, whatever else.
Yeah, they want to keep
and
you
treating
flat.
them.
They want to keep
They'd rather like operate on somebody.
Yeah.
They'd rather, and that's part of the problem. And the same with law enforcement. There's no money in these social, and when I say money, I mean money for the powerful. There's no money in social programs. There's no money in de-escalation. There is money in, the people who are profiting off of tanks being distributed to police bureaus all over the country. There is money in producing the tear gas and the rubber bullets, and it's the big defense contractors that are profiting off of this. There is money in that.
Yeah, these people who make the money off of all this misery, you would think that they want to live in a happy world, right? Like, who do they call when they have like a rodent in their yard? Which we love rodents, and we are anti-killing rodents, but cockroaches and stuff. They call an exterminator to kill the cockroaches. They want to live in a good world, is what I'm saying. They don't have shitty lawns. They have beautiful homes. So why not have a beautiful world that you can not be on house arrest with? You just want to stay in your bubble, Nancy Pelosi. You just want to stay in your little,
Well, how much ice cream is in the bubble?
I mean,
maybe she does want to stay in that bubble.
Bored of your bubbles. Don't you want the whole world to be happy and, I don't know, clean?
No. I think you're absolutely right, because that's another common theme too. Like so many people, especially, amidst the wealthiest among us, they kind of have this like, well, if it's not bothering me in my ivory tower, I don't really care. But it's like, yeah, don't you see the benefits of like a healthier society? Don't you see?
You want to go beyond your ivory tower? I mean, you watched Aladdin, Princess Jasmine. I mean, she had it all in her little bubble, but she wanted to escape.
And she was bored.
She was so bored. I mean, there's only so much ivory towerness you could take. You have to go beyond.
So what you're saying is if we gave all poor people magic carpets, rich people would wake up and they'd realize, I mean, hey, I'm with you.
Exactly.
We need to give everybody who's not the 1%. They need genies and magic carpets. And then the rich people are going to be like, well, we got to get some of that. And it's like, I get it, rich people. We're more interesting than you. That's always been the case. Here's what you have to do about law enforcement. Here's what we have to do about education. Here's what we have to do about blah, blah, blah. And you have the resources to help us. And they're like, all right, as long as we get a piece of this magic carpet and a piece of the genie, we're in. And then it's just like, all right, but we're scared what you guys might wish for. We really are. We're scared what you might do with your 3 wishes, but we'll take that chance.
Exactly.
So, I want to move on to other news stories, but, putting a period on it, I really hope this guy pulls through. And I hope he can tell his story. I mean, it's so sad that the silver lining we can cling to is, well, at least this guy's not dead.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so sad that it happens. It's so sick that it happens. And the one thing, like, well, hopefully this guy pulls through. As of the recording of this, he's still with us. And hopefully he pulls through and gets to tell his story. Because, in so many other cases, including the one in my neighborhood, that guy's not alive to tell his side of the story. Unfortunately, all we have is the police side of the story, which does not add up. You look at the video footage that they made available here in Pasadena, which it took them a week, pretty much. Well, nearly a week. It took about 5-6 days for them to make that footage available. It does not match up to what the cops say happened. You don't see any visuals confirming what they say happened.
Yeah.
So, and that sounds familiar, doesn't it? Doesn't that sound familiar? Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and